Hi everyone, and welcome to Act 1 of Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. Now this one's a comedy, so it means there will be a body count of less than 5 by the end of the play. So I'm excited, and we should get started. So it opens with 3 merchant guys talking to each other, and one of them is Antonio, who is the Merchant of Venice, the title character. And he's talking with his 2 other merchant buddies. And he's all gloomy, and his friends are like, Antonio, why are you so gloomy? He's like, really, there's no reason. Which pretty much characterizes Antonio for the whole play. He's just kind of a bad mood kind of guy for no reason. Just sad. He's like Eeyore. So they're like, okay, we know why you're sad. All your ships have left port and they have all your goods and money in them, so you're waiting for them to come back. And he says, nah, that's not it. And they say, okay, well then you're in love. And he says, nah, that's not it either. And so, obviously these merchant guys have played the game before, and they say, you know what, okay, look, there's your best friend and Bassanio, go complain about things to him. And Bassanio is indeed coming in with his 2 friends, Graziano and Lorenzo. Now these guys are kind of like the frat boys of the Shakespeare play. I think every Shakespeare play has like this team of frat boys that sort of worm their way in. So, Antonio goes over to talk to them, and Graziano and Lorenzo, Bassanio's buddies, decide to split. But they say, hey, Bassanio, don't forget we have plans tonight. And he's like, I won't. And Graziano sticks around a little longer to tell Antonio he looks sad. And Antonio says, I've heard. And Graziano pokes fun with him for a minute before leaving. Graziano's sort of the Joker character of this play, which is great if you enjoy Joker characters. If not, you just have to put up with him. So now Antonio and Bassanio are alone. And Bassanio says, listen, Antonio, I have to talk to you about something important. And Antonio's like, shoot. And Bassanio's like, okay, so you know I'm bad with money and saving stuff, right? And Antonio says, yeah. And Bassanio says, and you know I owe you a lot of money. And Antonio says, yeah. And Bassanio says, but you know how much I love you too, right? And Antonio says, yeah. And Bassanio says, look, because I have this plan where I'm going to get rich and I'll be able to pay off all the debt I owe you, but before that I'm going to need a little more money. Antonio loves Bassanio, like he really does, so that's probably the only reason he doesn't say, you're crazy, that sounds like the opposite of getting out of debt. Instead he says, alright, well let me hear this plan and I'll probably lend you the money after hearing it. And Bassanio goes, sweet, alright, so here's the plan. There's this really rich, beautiful woman in Belmont, right? Her name is Portia, and her dad just died, so obviously she needs a husband. Ugh. And so I'm going to go and try to woo her and get, her money, because she's like this really pretty lady and it would be cool to marry her too, but also money. And once I do that, I'll be able to pay off all my debts. But I need money to go to Belmont and look rich so I can look like a proper suitor for her. And Antonio says, you know what, okay, I'll lend you the money, but here's the deal. I don't have any money right now because all my goods and money are off on my merchant ships. They'll be back within like 3 months. So here's what I'll do. You can go find a money lender somewhere here in Venice, and I will have him sign off money in my name, and I'll pay him back for you, and you can just be in debt with me until you marry the lady and get your money. And Bassanio says, you're the best! And they man hug, and that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 1, Scene 2. So now we're hanging out with these 2 pretty cool ladies. One of them is Portia in Belmont, who I think Bassanio has already pretty much explained what she's all about, and her servant and best friend Nerissa. So she's in a room and she says, Nerissa, I'm sad. And Nerissa says, you're rich and pretty, and I'm a servant. What do you have to be sad about? And she says, well, Nerissa, you're right that I am rich and pretty, but my dad is literally forcing me beyond the grave to marry whatever guy can solve his dumb riddle. What if I don't even like any of the hooligans who solve it? I mean, I'm a woman, and this is the 1400s, so 1, he'd get all my money, and 2, I'd be stuck with him for life. Not exactly ideal. And Nerissa is like, yeah, that is pretty tough. And Portia goes on to slam every single suitor who has come to visit her. And they're pretty sweet insults, which makes you figure out that Portia is probably the smartest person in this play, because she's very witty. And in Shakespeare, witty equals intelligent. She calls all the guys who visited her smelly, and boring, and drunk, and pretentious. And finally Nerissa says, geez, were there any that you liked? And Portia goes, This is a tough one, but, there was this really cute guy who showed up that one time at that one party. His name was Bassanio, I think. He was pretty cute, right? And Nerissa's like, yeah, I guess he was pretty cute. And they're talking about how cute he was until a servant guy comes in and says, my lady, there's another guy here to see if he can solve your dad's dumb riddle and marry you. And Portia goes, oh, fine. And she and Nerissa exit, and that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 1, Scene 3. Back with Bassanio, and he's found a moneylender so he can get his cash. Now, the moneylender is this guy named Shylock, and he is this grumpy old Jewish man, and he's going to be our antagonist. So, Bassanio is at his shop, and he's begging him to lend him this money, and Shylock, because he's a jerk, is going, well, until finally he says, alright, I'll lend you the money, but because it's going to be in Antonio's name, I need to talk with him to work out the details. And Bassanio says, yeah, sure, come to dinner with us, man. And Shylock's like, I can't, idiot. Christians don't eat kosher. Luckily, at this exact moment, Antonio swoops into the shop. He's like, hey guys, what's happening? And Bassanio says, he's right here. You can totally talk details with him right now. And Antonio turns to us, the audience. No, Shylock turns to us, the audience, and says, I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret. I hate Antonio. It wasn't a secret, but okay. I hate him because he's a Christian, because he's ruined my business, because he lends people money for free, but I need to charge interest because this is my business. So he's ruining my business. Also, he spits on me and cusses on me in public. And that's not a good time. I don't know why he didn't put that sensible stuff at the beginning, which would make us sympathize with him more, but okay. So Antonio turns to Shylock, and he says, so Shylock, do we have a deal or what? Are you going to give my buddy the money? And Shylock says, well, Antonio, you have spit on me and made fun of me in public, and I don't think you're going to stop. And Antonio says, no, I won't. I'll probably spit on you and yell at you tomorrow. Do we have a deal? And Shylock says, yeah, you know what? Sure, actually, I'd be totally willing to lend you the money. But here's the deal. We're just going to put this in as a little joke where if you don't pay me back in 3 months for what I owe, I'm entitled to a pound of your flesh. Right? And Bassanio kind of goes, whoa, what? But Antonio's like, yeah, good joke. I'll totally sign. And Bassanio says, no, dude, I don't need 3,000. We can go find another moneylender who will give me this money. And Shylock's like, no, don't worry about it. Just a joke. And Antonio's like, just a joke, Bassanio. So he signs the contract. He signs the contract that says he will be killed. Okay. And so Shylock's like, cool, alright, well, here's the money. Have a good time and wherever you're going, Bassanio, and I will see you later for the money, Antonio. So Antonio and Bassanio leave, and Antonio's like, what a great guy. That was really a sweet deal. Isn't even that bad interest. And Bassanio says, I don't know, man. That was pretty sketchy. I don't have a good feeling about this. And Antonio's like, nah, don't even worry about it. My ships will be back in 2 months, then I can pay him back, and there will be no repercussions whatsoever. Cue ominous music. And that's the end of Act 1. Hope you guys liked it. Hope you're keeping track of your character names. I know they all kind of sound similar, but different people. And the action will pick up from here. Please leave any comments or questions you may have. And good luck studying. Alright everyone, welcome back to Act 2 of Merchant of Venice. I hope you're still with me. I hope your studying's going well, and we'll just start. So we're back in Belmont with Portia, and a new suitor has just arrived, the Prince of Morocco. And, you know, he's a good-looking guy, he's rich, he's a prince, whatever. And so he goes up to her, he's like, now, don't let my dark skin put you off. A lot of young ladies are in love with me. I'm sure you will be too. And she says, oh, okay, well, I'm sure you are a great guy, but remember, I just can't marry whoever I think is cute. You have to solve my dead dad's riddle. She's still not on board with this whole getting married thing, so this is working out. So that was kind of disappointing to him, because usually I think that pickup line works. And he's like, alright, explain this riddle to me. And she says, okay, well, I can't tell you the conditions right now, but here are the rules. 1, either you can drop out once you find out what the riddle is, or you have to take a chance and swear that if you get it wrong, You will never marry me or another woman in the whole world ever. Also, you cannot tell anybody about the conditions of the riddle if you lose. Now, I wouldn't take this deal. I mean, you have a 1/3 chance of winning, which is less than half, and you would never be able to marry another woman in the world? Ever? I mean, I wouldn't take that chance. But the Prince of Morocco is not as smart as me, and he's like, I'll do it. Bring me inside, pretty lady. And Portia's like, okay. And she brings him inside, and she goes, idiot. And then that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 2, Scene 2. So we're with a new character, Lancelot Gobbo. He works for Shylock. He's really only here for comedy relief. Gotta love those characters. And so he's trying to figure out whether he's going to stay working for Shylock, even though he hates it, or if he's going to run away from work, which is kind of a weak move. Eventually he decides to leave work. Weak. So, at this moment, his father, Old Gobbo, shows up, and Old Gobbo is blind as a bat and doesn't recognize Lancelot, which means he's awesome to prank. So he asks Lancelot where Lancelot is, and actually instead of saying, Dad, it's me, Lancelot, he gives him a bunch of wrong directions to find himself, asks his dad to tell him about himself, and before finally saying, Dad, it's me, Lancelot. But the thing is, it's hilarious. When he says, it's me, Lancelot, his dad doesn't even believe him. It takes extensive convincing. He says, Dad, I'm not happy here at work. I don't want to work for this old grumpy Jewish guy. I need a new master. Now, at this moment, Bassanio comes walking by, looking pretty rich in these new clothes that he just bought with Shylock / Antonio's money. And Lancelot's like, I'm going to go work for him now. So he and his dad run up to Bassanio, and they keep talking over each other and asking him to let Lancelot work for him, even though he's not that rich. And so after a few minutes of this tittle-tattle, Bassanio's like, yeah, fine, do whatever you want. And they're like, yes! So Lancelot runs off, and Bassanio's still walking around, you know, wearing his awesome new clothes. Now Bassanio's buddy from last act, Rizzanio, shows up and says, dude, you have to let me go with you to Belmont. And Bassanio's like, well, I'd like to, but I want to make a good impression, and you have a tendency to party too hard. And Grisanio's like, dude, I am a total priest from now on. I will be the shining example of virtue. And Bassanio's like, alright, cool, you can come. And Graziano's like, cool. By the way, when I said from now on, I meant starting tomorrow, because we have a party tonight. And Bassanio's like, sweet. And that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 2, Scene 3. We're back with Lancelot and Shylock's daughter, Jessica. He's leaving, and she's saying how much she's going to miss him, since he's a nice guy and her house is basically like hell, so she's going to miss having him around as, you know, a funny prankster guy. But she gives him some money and says, please deliver this letter, and she gives him a letter, to my secret boyfriend, Lorenzo. Not Lancelot, he's not her secret boyfriend, that would not be much of a secret. Please give this to my secret boyfriend Lorenzo, who is a friend of your new master Bassanio. And Lancelot says, oh yeah, of course, I got you. You're so beautiful and kind, you shouldn't be Jewish. If you haven't picked up on it yet, this play is pretty anti-Semitic. You just have to roll with it. It's in the context of the play. It does not hold true for the rest of the world. So he leaves to deliver the letter, and Jessica says, wow, well, if he keeps his promise to me, and Lorenzo comes tonight, then I will no longer be Jewish, but I will become Christian and his wife. And I'll leave my dad and become rich. Sounds rad. End of the scene. Alright, Act 2, Scene 4. So we're with the college-age boys again. And this time they joined with Antonio's merchant buddies from the beginning of the play. They're making plans to sneak out of the party early, losers, so they can help Lorenzo sneak Jessica out of her house. So Lancelot shows up at this opportune time with the letter that Jessica gave him to give Lorenzo. He gives it to Lorenzo. Lorenzo reads it. It's like, sweet, alright. we're gonna sneak Jessica out of her house tonight. And the guy's like, okay. So he turns to Lancelot and he says, okay, I need you to tell Jessica that we're going to come and help her run away tonight. And Lancelot is like, sure. Also, I need to tell Shylock that Bassanio wants to eat dinner with him, so he can get used to this whole my new master deal. And Lorenzo's like, cool, no one cares, go do that. Lancelot leaves, and Lorenzo turns to the guys and he says, alright, Jessica just sent me this awesome letter saying how to sneak her out of her house successfully, and also she said we're going to steal a bunch of money from her dad so we can live in comfort. So, sounds awesome. And that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 2, Scene 5. So we're back in Shylock's house again, with Lancelot again, only Shylock is with him this time, and he is none too pleased that Lancelot is leaving his job, and he is also none too pleased that he has to go eat dinner with Bassanio. So he keeps yelling at Jessica from 2 floors away. He's like, Jessica, come downstairs! And so finally Jessica does come downstairs, and he gives her the house keys. He says, Jessica, I need to go out tonight to eat with Bassanio. Please take the house keys and make sure nothing bad happens, and that my things don't get stolen. Jessica and Lancelot share a quiet, good laugh, because she will be the one doing the stealing. And he leaves. Lancelot leans up to Jessica and lets her know that Lorenzo is coming tonight to run away with her. And they both leave, and Jessica goes back upstairs so she can, steal stuff and change into her disguise. So we shift to outside, where Graziano and one of Antonio's merchant buddies are waiting. They're wearing a mask from the party, and they're waiting for Lorenzo to show up. They're laughing about how dumb love is, and how people do dumb stuff for love, and, crazy young couples. And so finally Lorenzo shows up, and so those 3 crowd underneath Jessica's window and yell for her to come out. Which she does, dressed as a boy. I don't know why she's dressed as a boy. It's not like her dad is around or anything. I'm not even sure why these guys are wearing masks, but okay. So she says, I'm going to throw down some money. And they're like, okay, we're ready. And so she tosses down this huge treasure chest of cash for her and Lorenzo. And they catch it, and he's like, okay, now you come down. And she's like, oh, it's embarrassing. I look like a boy. And Lorenzo's like, I'm sure you're still pretty. And she's like, you know what? I am pretty. And so she jumps out the window, the 3 guys catch her, and they make to run away, as you do. And Antonio shows up for a split second to tell Graziano that Bassanio is leaving for Belmont right now. So he better hurry and catch up with him before he goes. And that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 2, Scene 6. So we're back with Portia, and the Prince of Morocco is just about to try his hand at the riddle. He has not done it yet. We were waiting to get back to him for a couple of days, I guess. So he's looking at all these caskets, which are like chests, and they're all made out of different things: gold, silver, and lead. And one of them has a portrait of Portia inside, and if he chooses that one, then he gets to marry her. Each casket comes with a different riddle. The gold one says that the person who opens it will get what many men desire. The silver one says the man who opens it will get what he deserves. And the lead one says the man who opens it will have to give instead of take. Now, I want you to take a personal guess here, viewer, on what the right chest will be. You would think out of Portia's hundreds of suitors, someone would have gotten lucky on this 1 in 3 chance and picked the correct one, but I guess high school sophomores are smarter than hundreds of suitors. So the Prince of Morocco is looking this over. He totally ignores the lead one because he's like, I'm great, I don't have to give up anything. He looks at the silver one for a while, but passes it over and chooses the gold one. And he opens it, and there isn't a picture of Portia. There is a skull inside. And basically the lesson is, don't be greedy because we're all going to die anyway, blah, blah, blah. He leaves, he can never marry anyone. Portia makes a racist remark about being glad he lost. And that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 2, Scene 7. A lot of scenes in this act. So we're back with Antonio's merchant buddies, and they're filling us in on current events. Bassanio and Graziano left for Belmont to woo Portia. Only Bassiano's doing the wooing. Lorenzo ran away with Jessica, and Shylock is not happy about Lorenzo running away with Jessica, along with all the money they stole. In fact, he's equally upset about both things, which is kind of messed up because, you know, your only child versus some money. He's going through the streets making a fool out of himself, and that's hilarious to these two merchant guys. But they're saying, well, this is hilarious at the moment, but Antonio is on this guy's bad side, so this is probably not going to work out for him in the long run. And the other guy says, well, you know, I've heard some hearsay that one of Antonio's merchant ships sank, so he's going to be losing money out of this deal either way. This is not the first time we will be hearing about this. So then the merchant guys talk for a few more minutes about how much Antonio loves Bassanio, and then they leave, and that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 2, Scene 8. Okay, last one. So we're back in Belmont at Portia's house, and there's a new suitor here, the Prince of Aragon, and they're prepping him for the casket test as well. And I think Portia's just about as sick of it as we are, but it said in her dad's will that she can either marry whoever solves the riddle or live penniless. So, pretty crap dad, but I guess we're just going to have to go with it. So she says, alright, pick your casket or whatever, do what you want. So the Prince of Aragon is looking him all over. Just like the other guy, he passes up on the lead one, but is smart enough not to go with the gold one. So he picks the silver one instead because he thinks he deserves Portia, but the truth is, he gets what he deserves, which is nada. The lesson is, no one deserves Portia. She's too good for everybody. He leaves dejected, he can never marry, he can't tell anyone what happened, and Portia's like, oh, thank God, that's over. So Nerissa runs in, and she's like, there's a new suitor here! And Portia's like, oh good, good. And Nerissa's like, no, it was that guy. And Portia's like, what guy? And the messenger comes in, and he's like, Bassanio from Venice has come to seek your hand, or whatever, my lady. And Portia's like, oh, that guy I thought was cute that one time! And Nerissa is like, yeah! So they go out to say hi, and Nerissa literally gives a prayer that this will be the last time she has to go through this casket thing. Everyone's getting tired of it. And that's the end of the act. So that was Act 2. I hope you really liked it. Sorry it was so long. Please leave any comments or questions, as always, and good luck studying. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Act 3 of Merchant of Venice. Now, this is where the action really starts to pick up in terms of the whole pound of flesh thing, so hope you're paying attention. So we start off with Antonio's two merchant buddies again, and I'm just going to call these guys the exposition guys, because that seems to be their only purpose in this play. Right now, they're providing exposition. They tell us that another one of Antonio's ships has sunk, which is really bad considering he's going to have to pay up Shylock soon, and things are looking pretty bleak for him. Just as they see this, Shylock wanders by, and he's still really upset about Jessica stealing his money and taking off. The two merchant guys strike up a conversation with him about this, even though they've probably spat on him in public before, like Antonio has. And he's like, yeah, I'm bummed about my daughter going to hell for stealing my money. And they say, well, she might not even be your daughter. She doesn't even look like you. Your dead wife probably cheated on you. Which is, you know, pretty cold, but Shylock cheers up immediately at the thought that he's going to get to murder Antonio after all. And the two merchant guys say, wait, you're not really going to kill Antonio. You said that was a joke. And Shylock says, guess what? Not a joke. Me saying it was a joke was a joke. And he actually begins his hath not a Jew eyes speech right around here. Now, this speech is important for two reasons. One of them is the whole treat everybody else like a human being and not less than a human being ideal, which everyone should take to heart. But it also is important in the narrative because it gives Shylock a lot of sympathy and pathos that a lot of Shakespeare villains just don't get, which is a bit funny and odd because this play was written in a very anti-Semitic time, where no one would really be surprised to see a Jewish man as the antagonist. But this whole speech gives him a very sympathetic light and shows that he's a very deep and reflective character with a lot of, inner workings going on that sometimes Shakespeare villains typically don't have, especially not caricatures of racist or sexist or any sort of deal would have. So there's been a lot of controversy over how Shakespeare meant Shylock to be portrayed, but we'll just have to figure that one out for ourselves. So he finishes the speech, and the merchants sort of wander off, being like, yeah, okay, whatever. And one of Shylock's Jewish friends, Tubal, comes up, and Shylock says, have you found my daughter? And Tubal says, well, I looked where the gossip said she was, but I couldn't find anything. Also, I've heard that she's been spending your money like crazy, and that she traded your dead wife's ring in for a pet monkey. And Shylock's like, oh, that's awful, that's awful. But he, again, cheers up thinking about how he's going to get to murder Antonio, because Antonio's ships are not coming in, and so he will be able to bag this guy as soon as the contract is up. And as he's thinking about this, he's very satisfied with it. That's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 3, Scene 2. So we are hanging out with Bassanio and Portia in Belmont now, and Bassanio has decided to do the riddle thing today. But Portia likes him now. We don't get to see them fall in love, boo, but she says, listen, Bassanio, you don't have to do the riddle thing today. I mean, you can wait, because if you get it wrong, like surprisingly literally everyone has, you'll have to leave forever. And I like hanging out with you, so don't try to do the riddle thing today. And also, I'm just trying to stall you so you don't do the riddle thing. And Bassanio says, I'm going to do the riddle thing. And he and Portia trade cool puns for a minute, a sign of true love, before she leads him off to the casket room and talks about Greek mythology for a little bit before he has to solve the riddle. This background choir we've never seen before sings in the background, and everyone's just sort of waiting to see what he's going to do. Now Bassanio surprisingly shows some sense and realizes A, he doesn't deserve someone as fabulous as Portia, so obviously not the silver one, and 2, gold isn't the best thing in the world, so not the gold one. So he picks the lead one, opens it up, and there's Portia's picture inside. He gets to marry her. Yay! They kiss. Graciously, Bassanio says, listen, you don't have to marry me if you don't want to. I only wanted us to get married if we're in love. Which is pretty great, considering he only wanted to marry her for money at the beginning. So, character development that we didn't get to see, but still, character development. So Portia says, dude, I already said I liked you, I don't want to seem like I'm easy, but I do really like you. And Bassanio says, yeah! And he gives her this ring that he, I guess, picked up with Antonio's money while he was here on the off chance that he won. So he gives it to her, and they kiss again, and everything's great. Now, Graziano shows up in the background with Nerissa. Nerissa, by the way, is relieved this whole casket thing is over, like the rest of us are. And Graziano says, by the way, me and Nerissa also want to get married. Now, we really don't get to see these two fall in love, because we've never even seen them talk or interact or anything up till now. They haven't even mentioned each other. But Bassanio and Portia just say, cool, let's double wedding it. And as if to cap off this whole random romance deal, Lorenzo and Jessica show up, probably fresh off the honeymoon, with one of Antonio's sailor merchant exposition friends. And the merchant exposition friend actually has a letter from Antonio to Bassanio. And he says, Bassanio, here's this letter from Antonio. And Bassanio opens it, and it basically says, Dear Bassanio, bad news. None of my ships came in. I don't have any money. I'm going to be killed by Shylock. I love you. Please visit me before I get killed. Bassanio's like, oh no, how could this happen? And the merchant friend says, yeah, actually, everyone in Venice is trying to tell Shylock to back off, and he just won't back off. So it would be cool if you could show up and just give Antonio a little sign of your love before he kicks the bucket during a grisly murder. And Portia's like, what's going on? And Bassanio says, this is my friend. And she's like, your best friend? And he's like, my best friend forever. And he's going to get killed. And she's like, well, how much money does he owe this guy? And he says, 3,000 ducats. Now, for everyone else in the room, they're like, oh, gasp, so much money. But let's not forget, Portia is rolling in the dough. So she's like, that's all? I mean, let's double that. Let's send him 6,000. No, double that, then triple. Let's send him 36,000 ducats. Then he definitely won't kill your friend, right? Right? And Bassanio's like, yeah, would you do that? And she's like, sure. I mean, your idiot friend seems nice other than the stupid deal you made. So here's my offer. We'll get married, me and you and Nerissa and Graziano, and then you two can go back off to Venice while we wait here or at a convent. We'll just wait for you guys to come back. And you can give your friend this money and try to get him out of being killed by this guy. And Jessica says, oh, I don't know about that. My dad's pretty crazy. And Portia's like, it's worth a shot. And Bassanio says, Portia, you're the best. I'm so glad we're getting married. And they kiss again. There's a hug. And that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 3, Scene 3. So we're back with Shylock and Antonio in Venice, and there are a ton of people here, and they're all trying to convince Shylock not to kill Antonio. But Shylock is basically doing the Shakespeare equivalent of la la la, I can't hear you, I'll have my bond no matter what, la la la. And Antonio is saying, Shylock, please listen to me. But Shylock keeps la la lying, so nothing really gets across. Antonio just gives up in the end and says, you know what, if I see Bassanio before I die, I will die happy, so nothing else matters. Which is really nice, but he's still gonna die. And that's the end of that scene. Right, Act 3, Scene 4. We're back with Portia and Nerissa and Belmont, and they're coming up with a cunning plan as we speak. So Portia turns to Lorenzo and Jessica, who are still there, and says, I need you to take care of my awesome mansion while me and Nerissa are going to be gone for a couple of days. We're going to a convent to wait for our husbands to come back. Lorenzo and Jessica are like, cool. They take the keys. They're going to be house sitting. So they leave, and Portia turns to Nerissa and is like, guess what? We're not going to a convent. And she turns to her servant, Balthazar, and says, okay, listen, send this letter to Dr. Bellario, my cousin. He's going to send back papers and clothes for Nerissa and me. So bring them back to us. We're going to be in Venice ASAP. Balthazar leaves the letter, going off to talk to Bellario. And Nerissa says, so what are we doing? And Portia's like, alright, well, part of the plan is that we're going to dress up like men. During this monologue about dressing up like men, she makes fun of men in a very on-point way. Nerissa asks the obvious question of, why? And Portia says, I'll tell you on the way there. And that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 3, Scene 5. So we get to see Lancelot again! Yay! So he and Jessica are hanging out at Portia's place, and like alluded to earlier, they are debating on whether or not Shylock was Jessica's real father. And Lancelot says, well, it'd probably be better for you if he wasn't, because, you know, it'll make you less likely to go to hell for being Jewish. And Jessica says, well, I'm not even Jewish anymore. I converted to be with Lorenzo, and I'm going to tell him you said all these awful things about me when he gets back. Just as she says this, Lorenzo gets back and sees them together. He's like, hey guys, stop hanging around together, or might get jealous, in a very unjealous or worried way. So they all trade puns and some vaguely racist and anti-Semitic remarks. You realize that this scene does not really matter in the context of the play at all. And they all leave to go to dinner in a very anticlimactic way, and that's the end of the scene. So that's the end of Act 3. Hope you guys liked it. The action really picks up in Act 4 for those of you who are getting kind of bored. As always, please leave any comments or questions you may have, and good luck studying. I will see you next time for Act 4. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Act 4 of Shakespeare's Law and Order. I'm just kidding, it's still Merchant of Venice, but this is actually a lot like a Law and Order episode. So, fittingly, we open in a courtroom with the Duke of Venice, who is like our judge in the scenario, Bassanio, Graziano, Antonio, and a bunch of random citizens of Venice who've just come to watch Shylock kill a guy. So the Duke of Venice says to Antonio, who's on the stand, he's like, dude, I'm so sorry, I tried to talk Shylock out of this like 1,000 times, but he's really fixated on killing you. And Antonio says, don't worry about it, man. I'm not mad. Thanks for trying. And so Shylock comes in, and the Duke of Venice says, Shylock, for the 1,000th time, killing Antonio like this is weird and creepy. Please don't do it. And Shylock says, I'm entitled to my bond. I'll do whatever I want. And Bassanio starts yelling at him. Everyone in the courtroom starts yelling at him until Antonio breaks it up. At this point, Bassanio pulls out the 6,000 ducats Portia sent him here with and says, here's double your money. Take it, and don't kill my friend. And Shylock says, no, that's not what it says in the contract. I am totally entitled to kill your friend. I don't want your money. So that causes even more yelling. And so finally Antonio breaks it up again. The Duke of Venice pounds the gavel and calls for Dr. Bellario to come in, a lawyer who will be defending Antonio. Now, you might remember that Portia said last act that she and Bellario are friends or cousins or whatever they are. They know each other. They're on good terms. So, as he calls in Dr. Bellario, a young male clerk comes in. But it's not really a male clerk. It's Nerissa in boy's clothes. We recognize her, but her husband, Graziano, does not. Don't worry too much about that. We're not supposed to. So she comes in and gives him some letters from Bellario, and the Duke of Venice reads them and says, oh, well, Dr. Bellario couldn't make it today, but he sent in his apprentice, this young, smart lawyer, to defend you instead. And Tony's like, okay. And so Nerissa brings in Portia, who's dressed as a male lawyer. And you realize this is going to be the coolest courtroom scene ever, because Portia's dressed like a man. We know it. Bassanio doesn't know it. Portia is the smartest person in this play. She's going to tear Shylock apart. So she goes up to the stand. She identifies Shylock, Antonio, and the terms of the case, and says, Shylock, what's the deal here? And Shylock says, I'm entitled to kill this guy. It says in the contract that I can, and legally, under the laws of Venice, I'm allowed to do what the contract says. He signed it, I signed it, it's all in the document. And Bassanio starts yelling. He says, I have the means to triple what is owed here, and he won't take it. And Portia says, Shylock, I don't know, I think you should take this money. And Shylock says, no, I don't want the money. I want to kill Antonio. And Portia says, well, legally, I can't stop you from taking the pound of flesh. But remember that we beg God for mercy. And so if we don't show other human beings mercy, do we truly deserve it? It's a whole monologue. It's pretty cool. Superb job, Portia. She's doing a great job. Bassanio says, yeah, just take the money. Like, just take it. Don't kill my friend. And Shylock says, I don't care. I'm killing this guy. And Portia says, he can do it. There's nothing I can do to stop him from taking the pound of flesh. It's in the contract. Legally, he's allowed to. And so Shylock's like, yeah. And she turns to Antonio and asks him for his last words. Now, I love Portia because she is just dragging this thing out. She does not need to. She totally has the means to end this court case right now. But she's just messing with Antonio and Bassanio. So Antonio calls Bassanio over for his last words. And he says not to be sorry, to please remember him fondly, to tell Bassanio's wife Portia that Antonio was a good man, and he tells Bassanio that he has loved him more than anyone else has ever loved him ever. It's very sweet. It's very emotional. And Bassanio says, Antonio, you know that I love my wife, but if I could save you right now, I would gladly trade her in your place so she would die and help you. Portia's right there. She is right there. She's like, okay, all right. I think if your wife was here, she would beat you up. But she says this under her breath, so Bassanio doesn't suspect a thing. Also, Graziano, who no one was even talking to, says, yeah, I wish my wife was dead too, so she could be an angel and help you from heaven. And Nerissa, who's still also there as the male clerk, mutters that he's going to be sleeping on the couch for the rest of his life. So Shylock's like, all right, enough with all this tittle-tattle and sappy, cheesy stuff. Can I kill him or not? And Portia's like, go for it. So he starts going up to him. He's sharpening the knife. He has the scale to measure the pound of flesh. And so just as he's about to cut Antonio open, Portia's like, wait, hang on, forgot to tell you. You can take a pound of his flesh, but you are not entitled to a drop of his blood. So if you cut him and he bleeds, then that is a murder attempt, and you are going to jail. That's it. Portia has just totally torn the case. She's a great lawyer. She ended this whole deal. Bless Portia. She's amazing. So now Shylock starts to sweat. Because obviously if he cuts Antonio, Antonio is going to bleed. So he's in a bit of a trap. And he turns to Bassanio and says, okay, listen, I'll take the money. And so Bassanio's going to give it to him. And Portia says, no, I told you I asked you 5 times if you would take the money rather than cut Antonio, and you said no, so you don't get to have it now. You said you will take your bond, so take it. But he can't. This murder attempt is going to cost him. So now they've got him trapped, because even though he has not cut Antonio or taken the money, the fact that he was going up to him with a knife and had this whole courtroom deal in the first place is a murder attempt on a Christian citizen of Venice, which is easily a crime. So the Duke of Venice writes out that in punishment, Shylock will have to give half of his money to Antonio and the other half to the church. And Shylock is horrified. He's like, kill me instead, because his money is his business. He's going to just die destitute anyway if he doesn't have any money. So Antonio, being the good guy that he is, says, no, give the money that would be mine back to Shylock, but make it in his will that he has to give all the money he has when he dies to his daughter and son, Lorenzo and Jessica, and make sure he converts to Christianity, which seems nice, but is kind of not nice for Shylock. So the Duke asks Shylock if he's content with this sentence, and even though you clearly wouldn't be, Shylock says, I am content, because it's better than being poor and dying on the street or being sentenced to death by the court of Venice. So, the court's over. Nerissa writes out the sentence. This is the end of the courtroom sequence. So, the Duke invites Portia and Nerissa back to his house for dinner, and Portia's like, thanks, we should be heading home. So they start to leave, and Bassanio and Antonio chase after them. Bassanio says, thank you so much for saving my friend. I don't think we'll ever be able to repay you. Would you come to dinner with us? And Portia says, no, sorry, we really should go home. Now, Bassanio is literally talking to his wife right now and does not recognize her for a second. They really need to get to know each other a little bit better. But, so he says, well, if you can't come to dinner, can you let me give you something? Here, take my gloves, take my jacket, take, like, my earrings, whatever he's wearing. And she says, no, I really don't want anything. And then she sees this ring that he's wearing. And she says, can I have this ring? And he's like, oh, you don't want it. It's a week-old ring, and it's dirty and gross, and it's expensive. You don't want it. And she's like, no, I like it. I'll take it. And so after she keeps asking for it, he says, listen, my wife gave me this ring, and I promised her that I'd never part with it. So I don't want to get in trouble with her. And Portia's like, shh, chicks be crazy, am I right? Well, whatever. Let's go, not Nerissa. And she and Nerissa start walking off, and Antonio sort of slaps Bassanio. He's like, dude, he just saved my life. He worked really hard for all of us. You should give him the ring. I'll explain things to your wife. And Bassanio goes, okay. So he takes off the ring and sends it and gives it to Graziano to go give to the lawyer and clerk. And that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 4, Scene 2. Now, we're back with Portia and Nerissa. They're booking it across Venice because they have to get back to Belmont before the guys get back. But so Graziano's been racing after him. He catches up with them, and he gives Portia Bassanio's ring, saying, okay, he wanted you to take it, so here you go. Also, can you have dinner with us tonight? But she can't, obviously, so she says no. Well, she can, but not as the lawyer, but as Portia, which she will be in attendance for dinner, but not as a guy. So Graziano's like, cool, thanks again for helping, and he runs out. And Nerissa catches on to the game that Portia's playing with her husband, with the ring thing, and she's like, you know what? I'm gonna do that too. So she runs after Graziano to get the ring that she gave him from him so she can trick him with it later. And Portia's like, oh man, we're gonna get them so good. And then they keep going on their merry way. And that ends Act 4. Hope you really enjoyed it. This was my favorite act by far. Please, as always, leave any comments or questions, and good luck studying. Hi everyone, welcome back to Act 5 of Merchant of Venice. This is a really short one, it's just one scene long, and it's here to tie up loose ends. So that said, let's get started. So we're back at Portia's house in Belmont, and Lorenzo and Jessica are there, just flirting it up, talking about old Greek myths like Pyramus and Thisbe, and their own love and how cute it is that they're together and how great their love is. But a messenger comes in and says, just to let you guys know, Portia's going to be home real soon. And Lancelot comes in and says, just to let you guys know, Bassanio's going to be home real soon. So Lorenzo and Jessica are like, okay. And those two leave so Lorenzo and Jessica can flirt with each other some more, which they do for a few more minutes before, thankfully, Portia shows up to break it up. And she's like, I'm home, let's start up a party for the guys. Because Bassanio shows up about 5 minutes after she does. Now, Portia is pretending that she was never really gone. They think she went to the convent, but we all know that's not where she really was. So, Graziano, Bassanio, and Antonio are all back. She welcomes them back. Bassanio says, oh, Portia, this is my best bro, Antonio. And she's like, it's nice to meet you, because we've never met before. And Antonio's like, that's right, I've never met you. Because he thinks that's true, but she knows it's not. So we've partied for about 10 minutes before we see Nerissa chasing after Graziano, chewing him out about the fact that he lost the ring, which means that she got it from him as the cleric. But as his wife, she's yelling at him for giving it away. She's like, I can't believe you gave away that ring, it was important. And he's like, rings are stupid anyway. And she says, you're stupid. And Portia, being the sly minx that she is, says, oh, Graziano, shame on you. I gave my husband a ring and he would never give it away. And Bassanio is just there like... Now Graziano sees this as his out and sells out his best bro in a second. He's like, Portia, Bassanio gave away his ring too, so he's just as bad as I am, he is also the worst. And Portia is like, Bassanio, how could you? That ring was like the symbol of our love. And Bassanio says, the lawyer demanded I gave it to him, and he just saved my best bro's life. Don't you understand? She's like, no, I don't understand. You said you would never give that ring away. I'm so hurt and angry. And so both the couples are fighting. Antonio's off to the side making comments about how he is uncomfortable. So after a while, he steps up to the plate and says, Portia, you know what? I was the one who told Bassanio to give his ring to the lawyer, so it should be me you're mad at, not him. Aww. And so Portia says, you know, okay, well, make him promise to me that he will never do such a thing on this ring. And she gives Antonio a ring to give to Bassanio. But psych, it's the same ring! Bassanio sees it. He's like, whoa, this is the same ring as before. How did you get this? Now, Portia and Nerissa could just tell the guys that they were the lawyer and clerk right now. But they decide to make them sweat a little longer and say, we slept with them. And now we're their wives because they had the rings, and that's how things works in marriage. But then they say, nah, we're just kidding. We were the lawyer and clerk. And so Bassanio and Graziano are a little relieved, but now they know never to mess with these ladies again. So everything's worked out. As an aside, Portia tells Antonio that somehow, in some way, in some alternate universe, his ships came back and they were full of his goods and money and he hasn't lost anything at all. Somehow. And she somehow knows about this. Okay. Lorenzo and Jessica find out that they will get all of Shylock's money when he dies, which is great. And all the couples go off to bed, and that's the end of the play. So that's Merchant of Venice. Hope you liked it. I think it's a really fun one. Please leave any comments or questions you may have below. I will see you next time for the next performance, and good luck studying.